Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to our channel, Bhagavad-gita. Here it is. We are reading Bhagavad-gita here. And this is the edition, Bhagavad-gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And my name is Labmangala Tika. We have entered into the 4th chapter, which is called Transcendental Knowledge. So here we will get to know many things, but especially we will learn about Krishna's position. In the 2nd chapter we established, and if you didn't follow us then, you're welcome to go back. There is it's possible to find it in the channel. We established what is the soul, what is the difference between matter and spirit, and how are we the individual living entity, Satchitananda Vigraha, Atma. 3rd chapter we're speaking about action, karma yoga. And chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, we're establishing the position of Krishna, the tattva, the category, so to say, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how that is different from that of the living entity. And a person who is just a simple, faithful devotee of God in any religion may be able to, just out of a instinctive, natural devotion, choose to take up God consciousness, a religion in their life. But in general, we want to understand what we're doing, and we want to understand why and how and so on. And Bhagavad-gita is satisfying that need for knowledge in the heart of the living entity. So today I will read text 5. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyahang veda sarvani natvang vetha parantapa. The personality of Godhead said, "Many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy." So Krishna and Arjuna, when we enter into the Bhagavad-gita, when we look back into the Mahabharata, the history, they have a very friendly relationship. They are very close. And that is actually something that comes back over and over in Krishna's pastimes. And even in the spiritual world, the close devotees, the devotees that are a little bit of a distance to God, that have the relationship of awe and reverence, they always know Krishna is God and I am the servant. But those devotees whose love is very strong, they, out of this love, forget that Krishna is God. We also forget that Krishna is God, but this is not out of love. This is rather the opposite. We want to forget God because otherwise it will kind of put a cramp on our style. It will stop us from feeling like we are the enjoyers and the controllers in this world. A pure devotee of Krishna has another perspective there, because they will love Krishna in one of 5 relationships, either as a servant, as a friend, as a parent, or as a lover. And also there is a neutral relationship where you are just observing and loving God from the distance. So that love of a friend, you cannot fully express it if you at the same time remember that Krishna is God. Krishna in Vrindavan is playing with his friend. They are playing leapfrog. They are stealing the lunch bags from each other. And they have a relationship of equality. And that mood, that rasa, would be disturbed if the remembrance of Krishna's position would be there. And similarly, Mother Yashoda, she believes herself to be Krishna's mother. She's very concerned that Krishna comes home on time, takes his lunch, eats properly, does all these things because she feels that protective love towards him. And seeing him as God, that would mess up that relationship. So therefore we have that specific function of Yoga Maya, which I didn't exactly plan to talk about in the 4th chapter here. But in this material world, we are covered by Mahamaya, which allows us to have that illusion that we are independent of God, we are part of this world, we are the independent enjoyer and controller. In the spiritual realm and in the spiritual energy, we have the function of Yoga Maya that assists in Krishna's pastime with his devotees, so that that love, that relationship comes foremost. So that was the relationship of Krishna Arjuna, a relationship of friendship, where you sit down, you joke, you're not very formal, you're not necessarily very, very respectful. I'm not saying a friendship is disrespectful, but there is not, this formality of respect is not there. And now Krishna is showing Arjuna, or describing to Arjuna, the difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the ordinary living entities. And this is one very noticeable difference. Many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. Krishna tells Arjuna, so I will read the purport now. In the Brahma Samhita 533, we have information of many, many incarnations of the Lord. It is stated there. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyang purana purushang navayovanang cha vedeshu durlabham atma bhakto govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. It is also stated in Brahma Samhita 539, Ramadi murti shukalani yamena tishthan nanavataram makarod bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna svayang samabhavat paramapumanyo govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is always situated in various incarnations, such as Rama, Nrsimha, and many sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead, known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also. So this Brahma Samhita is a very old song. Lord Chaitanya, who we have touched upon every once in a while, who is actually Krishna himself, who appeared 500 years ago, and this Hare Krishna movement, we are the direct followers in his line. He found this manuscript of this very old prayer from Lord Brahma to the who is the person who gets the job of creating the universe. Krishna is God, and he, of course, it's his energy, it's his matter, it's his everything. But he enables Brahma to take this job, and Brahma here is offering prayers to him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if anybody in this universe should know about these things, it's Brahma. So this is a very, we respect this poem very much. In the Vedas also it is said that the Lord, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color, yet remains one. All those multiforms are understood by the pure unalloyed devotees, but not by a simple study of the Vedas. Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktau. So it's difficult from the Vedas to understand Krishna, because the Vedas are very vast. The Vedas come at it from different angles, and a big portion of the Vedas is all about ritualistic sacrifices, about the Karmakanda portion, where you want to regulate your activities in order to get the best material result. And that's not really the whole picture, because the whole picture is we're in this material universe. There are many different layers that we as human beings, especially in this modern time, are not aware of because they are not apparent to us, our eyes immediately. This does not mean they don't exist. There are many things that are not apparent to our eyes immediately. If we look back in Western medicine, we don't have to look very far to come to a time where they didn't have knowledge. There were many things they were unaware of, about cleanliness, about the inner organs, about many of these functions. And then we have studied, and we have, especially within the medical profession, when they started cutting up dead bodies, then they got a better picture of what actually is in there. Of course, those are things that you can find if you just, open up the covering on the outside, because they are also things that you can touch and see. There are other things. What is intelligence? What is consciousness? These things are obvious. We are conscious. We cannot deny that. You cannot really do a scientific study on consciousness because it becomes subjective. We cannot objectively measuring it in that way, but we know it's there. It's always there. And in the same way, Krishna, God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we may not see him, a soul, we may not see him, but the symptom of consciousness is always there. And the symptom of existence, creation, everything does come from God. So these things we may not see immediately with our eyes, therefore we turn to someone who can teach us about them. We turn to the Vedas, and specifically within the Vedas we turn to the Bhakti portions. So here it said, just studying the Vedas without that sort of guidance, we can branch out and we can have different opinions and different ideas. Just like if a child is born and it's immediately understood who is the mother, because when there is birth, the mother is present. The mother is the central figure at the birth. But the father may or may not be there, and the father may or may not be part of the situation, and it's very difficult to prove who is the father. The mother, though, she knows. She has that connection, and she can tell the child, see, here is your father, I am your mother, and this is your father. So the Vedas are similar. This world is like that. We see everything, it all exists, but the cause behind it may not be apparent, and therefore we have the Vedas, we have the tradition of spiritual master who can tell us. Krishna is there. Devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord, and whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. Arjuna is one of these devotees, and in this verse it is understood that some millions of years ago, when Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-gita to the sun god Vivasvan, this has been discussed in the previous verses also, Arjuna, in a different capacity, was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered the incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. This is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. Although Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall what had happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be, in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. And this is not a problem. This is real humility. Humility is one of those qualities that is very intimately connected with spiritual life. Bhagavad-gita describes that one aspect of knowledge is humility, because if we don't have that basic humility, we will not be able to accept knowledge. Our heart and our minds, they won't be open enough to take in knowledge from a source that has this knowledge. And humility doesn't mean it's not bodily posture. It's actually realism. When we look around, especially when we hear about Krishna, even just watching this universe, we realize we're very small, we're very limited. And whatever qualities we have Arjuna here, who is one of the most celebrated heroes at the time. Still, in front of Krishna, he's quite insignificant, what to speak of us. And this is not a problem. This is just the situation as it is. It's just like when we walk out and we cross the road, we have the natural humility to stop when the cars come by. And this doesn't make us feel bad. I'm smaller than a car, and I can easily be squished into nothing by a car. So I step back and let the cars pass. This is not lack of self-esteem. This is not some kind of posturing. This is reality. And in front of the universe, in the front of the laws of karma, in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are all rather small. And finding that position and finding who we are and what we can do in that position is actually very enlivening and very strengthening. So humility is not a problem at all. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person. The Lord is described in Brahma Samhita as infallible achyuta, which means that he never forgets himself, even though he's in material contact. Therefore, the Lord and the living entity can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. Although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, he sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord, but by the divine grace, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or a demon cannot understand his transcendental nature. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by the demonic brain. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that the living entity forgets everything due to his change of body. But the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchitananda body. He is Advaita, which means there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord explains in the following verse. So, this fourth chapter, we are going to get to know Krishna better. So there is the complete knowledge of Krishna includes our relationship of him in a spiritual nature, and there we don't really require to understand Krishna's position in relation to this material energy, to this world, but we're not really there yet. So we will go gradually into the explanations of how Krishna appears in this world, who he is, and what his position is, so that we will be able, because that's the first step. What we are aiming for is actually developing our natural love for Krishna. And the interesting thing is, when we come to that point, we may again forget Krishna's position, but then it doesn't matter, because then we are established in our natural position as Krishna's eternal servant, in that loving service. But when we are here, we have come so far that we are actually reading Bhagavad-gita. We are paying some attention to the eternal facts of life that are especially relevant when we have this human form of life. But we may not be perfectly purified, perfectly realized, and that is also fine. And therefore Krishna is presenting this knowledge to us in such a way that we can understand him properly, and we can take up Krishna's consciousness, we can take up spiritual life properly also, and from there our realization can grow and our spiritual understanding can grow naturally. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Krishna Krishna